We want to welcome Bryan Taunton, candidate for mayor in the September runoff elections. And we were talking a week ago today, as a matter of fact, was the municipal election. And Bryan, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Jimmy Dale.
Trust you're feeling well today.
We are. We're recuperating.
Well, you know, you don't have much time to recuperate now, though, do you?
No, we've got to hit the ground running. And I haven't let any grass grow under my feet. I was back out there the very next day after the election, and we're going to keep on.
Yeah, well, let's talk about you were runner-up in the election, municipal election, to Matt Hubbard, and you two guys will be in runoff coming up later on this month. What did you take away from the election, first of all?
Well, you know, the continued apathy that we're seeing in our city. Citizens, you know, we had, what was it, 26% showed up to the polls, so we've got a little over 8,500 people that are registered to vote, and I think we had 2,226 people that actually showed up. So that indicates that you know, our folks, a lot of our folks, just feel like their vote doesn't matter, and it's not important enough for them to make it to the polls because they don't believe their vote's going to make a difference.
And we talked about this time and time again, you know.
We did, and you know what? If that's part of our issue, people are upset. So, well, things never change. It's always the same group or whatever. Well, you know what? You've got to get out and cast your vote to create that change. That's the only way it's going to happen.
Yeah. So, post-municipal election, your thoughts other than apathy among voters?
Well, people are still out there. I mean, since the election, I've probably spoken to, I would say, between 500 and 600 people. And knocking on doors, and people are just, they're still saying, you know, we've got to do some things differently, and they're still clamoring, you know, wanting things for our children and things, and we'll talk about that in just a few. I'm sure you'll probably, because that's the hot topic in our city, that and the animal shelter. And I believe the animal shelter is of great importance without question. We've got to give it some attention. But we've also got other issues that we've got to direct attention to in our city. And people are pointing to that. They're starting to open their eyes about our crime issues and things that are happening in the city.
Any strategy changes between the municipal election and the runoff?
You know, not really, other than we're just going to be more effective in getting out there. We've got, I'll tell you, since now that we're in a runoff, what has established is a great sense of urgency, especially among my campaign supporters who have said, hey, you know, what can we do to help you win this thing? And had a great meeting with volunteers last night who are going to be out there working in the community.
No discouragement?
No, just absolutely not. This opens the door for opportunity, gives us a great perspective on exactly where we're at in terms of what we need to do in being more effective in getting our message out there. I even had some voters contact me, several in fact, that said, you know what, Bryan, you were out there so much on social media and knocking on doors and having house meetings and stuff. We're sorry, we did not make it to the polls because we thought you had it. And I was just like, no, you can't. You can't assume that. Obviously, you never assume that. And so there were some that didn't make it to the polls just because they thought our campaigning was so effective that we had it won. And obviously, you can't make that assumption.
And traditionally, less people go to the runoff election than they do the municipal election.
Absolutely, and that's why we've got to focus on getting people out to the polls. We've got to get them there. You've got to, just talked about it, folks, you've got to get to the polls. You've got to cast your ballot for this election. If you want to see change, I mean, right now, everybody's clamoring for change. We've had 2 sitting city council people that have now been reelected. You've got 2 others that are in a runoff. Well, do you really want change? Because if you want change, you've got to get to the polls and vote it.
Yeah. What, Bryan, do you bring to the table if elected later on this month in the office of mayor?
You know, Jimmy, I'll tell you one thing I did immediately after the election is I reached out to my opponent and I asked for a debate. Mm-hmm. Now, why would I do that? Well, you know, we had the forum. Here's the thing about a forum, is people ask a question and every candidate or the candidates that they direct that question to have the opportunity to answer that. Well, there are certain conversations like the animal shelter. Well, many of the answers for every candidate is the same. So our people really do not have the opportunity to see, okay, what separates the candidates. And I believe that this is one of the things that separates me and my opponent in that when it comes to, I understand he has administrative ability in the school. And we're not mudslinging, we're just making general comparisons here. Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate his efforts in that area. But being an administrator in a school system is much different than being an executive leader or administrator in a corporate business setting.
Explain.
Well, in a corporate business setting, you have to know how to negotiate with companies and industry, and you've got to know how to talk the jargon. You've got to know how to have those relationships in existence to be able to get out there and make those connections to draw those industries into our community. Not only that, you also have to have the ability to manage employees in a different setting than in a school setting. Now, I've been fortunate. Jimmy, I really believe that the Lord's been training me for this for my entire life. I grew up in a business setting. Now, that doesn't mean my dad gave me anything. You knew my dad.
Oh, yeah.
He didn't give you anything.
He didn't give me anything either.
No, sir. And when he didn't give us an allowance. If we wanted an allowance, we had to work for it. I remember when the time I hit 6th grade at Mountain View School, I would walk 2 days a week. I was working 2 days a week at that time. I would walk from Mountain View School to Kentucky Fried Chicken. And I was so short I had to stand on a Coke box to reach over the breading tables to be able to bread chicken. But I would do that 2 days a week. I started out working for 50 cents an hour.
That's big money.
That was big money for, for a 6th grade kid. And so I was doing that and continued to do that as I grew up. So that's where I started, in the kitchen. Then I went from there to packing and putting together orders. Then I went from there to a cashier. I learned the business from the ground up. And through that, I learned management. At that point, I was afforded the opportunity then at 18 years old to become the youngest franchisee in the history of PepsiCo Industries. And
wow.
Went to Clanton and opened up our own store there. From there, I was never happy in the chicken business. I ended up getting another job. I took a job with Hickory River Plantations and went to work for them as executive vice president, traveled all over the United States, opened up 37 offices across the U.S., managed hundreds of employees, had to manage our general budget there, and on and on and on. Started a personal training company, ended up becoming one of the largest personal training companies in Birmingham, was managing at that time about a little over 120 some odd personal trainers in the city, and then was bought out by Gold's Gym. And then managed that for quite some time until the Lord finally convicted me and said, it's time for you to get your rear end where I want you and get into ministry. And that's where we went. And even there, I went to work with Scott Dawson, took over his Safe at Home program, which meant going to cities and hosting events at major and minor league baseball games, working with thousands of volunteers and organizing their efforts. So I understand how to create relationships and motivate people, administrate and organize and bring people together to accomplish a common task.
You have to admit that City Hall is kind of in disarray right now.
It has been, without question, and we've definitely got to work to bring unity in that. And Jimmy, a lot of that is just about understanding how to have a congenial conversation and not allow emotions to come into play. And while there may be differences, you can talk about those differences and have a conversation about those differences. And in some cases, hopefully someone understands, they come around, they begin to see things your way. If not, then you understand those differences and you can at least appreciate somebody's position.
Yeah, they were saying leaders lead and followers follow.
That's right.
Yeah. So how, if elected mayor, would you address the violence and crime in our town?
Well, you know, Jimmy, I am the only candidate, if you noticed at the forum the other night, I am the only candidate that's speaking to that. I don't know why others are avoiding it. I think they feel like if we talk about our crime rate, that it's a slap against our police department, and it's not. We've got a great SPD, but I think there are things that we can do better, and we've got to do better. We are in the worst 10% per capita in both the state and the nation. So folks, that means we have a crime problem that must be addressed. Now, what can we do about that? Well, we can start by working to rebuild trust between our police department, and do that through let's just communicate with our citizens. Let's get out there, meet our citizens, get to know them, and build relationships. I think we need to focus more on community policing, not simply just setting up roadblocks. We've got to, for instance, one of our highest crime districts is over in our government housing district. Well, we need officers that are there, that are present, that are building relationships, that our kids over there are seeing, and not just roadblocks.
We used to have a substation over there one time.
I believe we had a precinct over there in the Drew Court area. I think we need to reopen that, see what it's going to take to do that. We've got to make sure that our SPD, we've been short on officers for quite some time. We've got to make sure that we get our patrolman numbers back up. We can launch mentoring programs in those areas. We need to work to expand our youth activities and make sure that our youth have a safe place to play. I think we need to reopen Verley Collins and work. I know the housing department has assumed that now. So, and I was tickled to death to hear that Parks and Rec is going to help create some programming over there. But even then, I think there's even more. This is probably going to ruffle some feathers, but we've got Mountain View School over there. What might it take to get that back in order? Right now, I rode over there the other day. It's run down. It's falling apart. I mean, grass is growing everywhere. There's a full gymnasium there. What might it take to get that open back up? I remember some time ago, we had folks coming in. We had music lessons happening over there, piano lessons, dance. We had several things that were happening there. What might it take to get that place open so that we can work to create those safe places where our kids can come and interact with law enforcement? And then certainly we've got to invest in some preventative programs and things, some rehabilitation programs and revitalization programs in these areas to help bring it back to life.
Candidate for Mayor Bryan Taunton, our guest today. And you know, social media can be a good thing and it can be a very dangerous thing as well. But there was recently a post made on social media about your campaign financial disclosures, and I want you to speak to that today.
Yeah, I didn't see it until someone sent me a screenshot of it, and there was no context to it, so I don't know what the intent behind it was. It's not a big deal. Campaign finance we're required to report all your campaign contributions, all the money that you spend on your campaign is required to be reported to the Secretary of State. So anybody can go there and look it up. Back in October of 2024, after the Haitian crisis that we had, and I'll do that in parentheses, was it turned out wasn't really much of a crisis, quite frankly. But at that point, I saw our city was without leadership. And my wife and I had been praying. We decided we'd get in the race, and we took $6,000 of our own money and put it into the campaign. From that very moment, I began making our compliance reports, financial disclosures every month. And the way that works is you have to make your report monthly until you get within the last 4 weeks of your campaign, and then you have to make weekly reports. And so we've been doing that. We've operated in compliance. If you want to know about the other, my opposition, then go check that out for yourself. It takes a lot of money to run for mayor. When you start talking about yard signs, and speaking of yard signs, we've bought and put out all we're putting out. I've got people, thank you for your calls and asking for yard signs, but Sylacauga looks like a junkyard right now with yard signs everywhere. We've got intersections that candidates have 2, 3, 4 signs out at, and I think that's just enough. We've got enough of them out there, so I appreciate your support. And the main thing I need right now is not a yard sign in your yard. I need your vote. Yard signs don't vote, you vote, so that's what we need.
You know, getting back, Bryan, to the social media posts, and you're talking about the campaign financial disclosures that are mandatory.
Yes.
Why? You wonder why that would be out there, though.
You know, again, there was no context to it, so I can't answer that. I know that I'll just pick on somebody, and he may come after me. I don't know. Well, no, I'm not. There's 2 or 3 people out there, and in fact, some of them, they've talked about my opponent. There's others that talk about me, and they are brutal, man.
It's ruthless.
It's ruthless. And here, they don't even live in Sylacauga. I mean,
don't vote.
And yeah, they can't vote in Sylacauga. I appreciate the fact that they are from here, they live here, they interact with people here. But I don't think that we have to be nasty and mean. If you wanted me to attempt to put some context as to why someone would put my financials out there, I think it's just a matter of speaking toward, transparency, being truly transparent. And if you're not making
and that's your wish.
Yes, absolutely. And that's why we've worked above board to make sure that everything that we've done through this campaign has been reported to the Secretary of State. If someone's not doing that, then obviously that would speak to, are they really about transparency? And if they can't do that and can't do that on a regular basis, then how good are they, or how talented are they in their administrative ability if you can't run your campaign in compliance with the Secretary of State? That would speak volumes, I think.
There's still yet a lot of conversation about something more for our kids to do, and the Parks and Rec, they do a great job in what they do. But the question is still out there. We want more, we desire more for our kids to do. So what would be your plans to address this?
Well, again, I think there's been a lot of debate right now over the site selection of the rec. I don't want to get into that this morning. We've talked that until we're all, I think, blue in the face. The bottom line is the site has been chosen, whether you like it or not. We're probably 800,000 deep in just our architectural work on that site already. So to change the site is going to cost us a lot of money. So that's not going to be feasible. We can't afford to throw almost $1 million away. What we've got to do now is we're already making bond payments, but we've not moved the first shovel of dirt. So we've got to do whatever we need to do to get this process moving, and let's get dirt moving so we can get this place opened up. So my intention is to get in there and add some momentum to this and get the process moving, and let's get it done. So right now, let's be honest, our citizens don't even believe that it's truly going to happen, because we've been dealing with this, 15 years now? So we've got to restore faith and trust in that area. So let's get that moving. Let's also come back to Burley Collins. And I have just the other day, I spent a lot of time in District 2, and these folks are clamoring for something for their kids to do and for safe places for their children to go. So I think we need to reopen that. And there was one council person that says, well, he's talking about separatism. Absolutely not. What we're talking about is providing our children safe places in their community. And there might be some other areas that we need to look at to generate some volunteer programs and stuff in to assist in that area. But then the other comes back to, okay, there's only so much Parks and Rec and a city can do in regards to our entertainment for our children or family entertainment in a city. So what do we do? Well, it comes back to economics. We've got to make sure that we do what I've been clamoring for, which is we've got to grow, grow, and grow. We've got to make sure that we grow industrially, so that we expand residentially, so that and expand geographically, grow geographically also, so that we begin to advance the look of our population. And then those entities, as industry starts, more housing development starts, then those business owners that are out there will then start to look at Sylacauga as a viable opportunity. You can't expect somebody that's in the family entertainment business, like I forget the name of the place, but the Playtime place in Oxford or Pell City. You can't expect a business owner to come in and make that kind of investment into a city that's shrinking in population. So we've got to address that immediately and put a plan into place. And then the other thing that we can do to attract them here, once we generate that interest, is incentivize those opportunities to draw them here and get him here. But then once we get them here, we've got to support it. We've got to get behind them, and we've got to use the facility.
Bryan, talk about today the financial status of the city of Sylacauga. Where are we now and where do we need to go?
Well, I keep hearing that we're in the best financial shape that we've ever been, and that's good to know. But right now, honestly, I don't know anyone that has seen full disclosure of our financial records, with exception of maybe the mayor and city council. And I do understand that. You do have to be careful putting those numbers out there, because then you do want to keep a certain amount in reserves, and you have to protect that. And if you start announcing, well, we've got X amount of millions of dollars over here and here, then you get people coming and clamoring for money, and you really just can't release those funds, because there's so much there you're required to keep in the bank for as emergency resource for our city. But it would be nice to know what our capabilities are. I am anxious to see this year's budget and what's happening there. What I do know is that as chair of the Commercial Development Authority, we've added an extra $800,000 a year in sales tax revenue, but honestly, I couldn't tell you where that money's going, Jimmy. I wish that I could, but I don't see it. It hadn't been reinvested into the Commercial Development Authority, which would be nice. I would like to see that happen. We need, the Chamber's its own separate entity, and they've got Laura Strickland, who is phenomenal. We need a Laura Strickland type director in our Commercial Development Authority, so that we can focus on that to continue to advance our tax revenue, so that we continue to widen our financial base. So I wish that I could give you a better answer to that question, but again, I don't have the privilege of seeing those finances. So when they tell us that we're in the best financial shape that we've ever been, then I'm going to accept that and hope that that is true. And then once I'm elected into office, we'll take a look at those things. We'll take a look at where our spending has been going and why certain things have happened There are things I don't understand. I don't understand why whoever the powers that be were at that time decided to suddenly change our phone service, which has ended up costing us even more money with phone numbers that don't even work. And we can't seem to get to the bottom of that. We need to address that. So we need to look at, where is our money being spent? How well is it being spent? And what changes that we need to make in those areas.
Spend the next 3 to 4 minutes in talking about what your plans are from now until election, and maybe 1 or 2 things you can talk about quickly that you would like to institute once elected.
Well, right now, as I said, our campaign is focused on knocking on doors, getting out there and meeting the fine people of our city and stressing the need to get to the polls and vote. We will continue to focus on our social media and making sure that people understand and they hear the platform that I have been running on and the goals and expectations we have in moving forward in the city. And you know what? That's one thing that I will continue. Once in office, we talk about transparency. What does transparency mean to our citizens? It means effective communication, Jimmy. It means that people want to understand the whys and the wherefores of what we're doing, when we're doing it. They want to understand what's going on. And I plan to use my social media platform to continue driving those points home. We'll switch gears. We'll talk about, instead of what we want to do, we'll talk about what we're doing, making sure that our citizens understand what's going on, but also so that I can make sure that that I'm speaking for you. I want to do what you're wanting to see happen in our city. So we'll continue to use social media to talk about what the council's doing, what the mayor's doing, and what your objectives are for the city and how we're going to go about making that happen. We're not going to slow that process down, so we'll keep that going. The other thing is making sure that we work toward creating that sense of unity. And I think the mayor has done, Jim has done a great job over the past few months in correcting some things in City Hall. There's not near as much talk going on, and I think we need to continue that trend. I've said that for at least a time, I'm going to move my office from upstairs to downstairs so that I can be there and be very accessible to our citizens. But also, there's another reason for that. It's not about monitoring what our city employees are doing, but I want to understand what they're doing so that I can relate with them. And when I'm talking to our citizens, be able to effectively communicate with them what our city employees are having to deal with. It's my intention to try to get personal, hands-on experience with every job that our city has. That comes from the city clerk's office all the way down to our street department, to Parks and Rec. You may see me out there cutting grass because I want to get the experience that our folks, our employees of the city, are having to go through in order to be able to do their job. So I understand what tools they need to be able to best do their jobs and meet our public's expectations.
Right before we go, we've got to get people back to the polls. We've got to get people to the polls. And I don't know the best way to do it, but both you and your opponent are working hard to try to get that message out.
Yes, and I can't do anything short of beg. Folks, if you want this community to change, and that's what everybody I encounter, they say, we're not satisfied. We want change. But my vote doesn't matter. It's just going to be the same old, same old. They've got their own group that they want to put in there. Okay, well, there might be certain aspects of your complaint that might be true. But guess what? Your vote still matters. And if you want change, I'm the only candidate that you've got that's going to help create that change. So I am begging you to get to the polls and cast your ballot on September the 23rd for me, Bryan Taunton. It is vital in moving our city forward. I've got a great vision on how to do that, If you hadn't heard it, then I invite you to go on Facebook, go to my website, go to YouTube, go on TikTok. If you're on TikTok, I've got dozens and dozens of videos talking about my platform to give you reason to go on September 23rd and vote for me. So I'm just begging you, don't be apathetic. Don't think that your vote doesn't matter, because your vote counts. You've got to get to the polls.
Bryan Taunton, candidate for mayor in the Sylacauga City runoff election, coming up later on this month. Appreciate Bryan being here today. We got more coming up right after this.